Hey beautiful quarantine friends, Daniella here with another YouTube video about my quarantine. This one's a little unique because it's a video I've really been wanting to make probably for the last 2 months, and I'll tell you why. Postpartum, meaning after you give birth to a baby, is a wild experience. I've got a little 3-week-old. Where's my 3-week-old? You say hi? A lot of people think pregnancy is wild, and it is, but for me, I felt like I was so comfortable in my skin and I loved my body and I was still able to do everything I wanted to do, and I worked out, and it just felt like normal life per usual. Postpartum feels a lot like quarantine. And today's hairdo is we've got a lot of body, and what this is, why it's so thick, not from teasing, from sleeping, natting it up. When you have a baby, at least for me, I felt like I was very alone. I felt very closed in. I felt like my home was like a just mess, and it felt overwhelming, and everywhere I looked felt like I could barely handle anything. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I had such a big responsibility to keep a baby safe and alive, and so I was too scared to pretty much do anything that could compromise that. Now, keep in mind, Gio had a really scary fever at 4 weeks old that rushed us to the hospital, and that was really, really terrifying. It ended up being some weird virus. They couldn't figure out what it was. They ran all sorts of tests. They didn't see anything from that. They couldn't figure it out. So what we learned was there are a number of viruses that they don't have tests for specifically, where they don't know what they are exactly. So that was what he had, and this was back in October. So what we learned from that was we really had to be careful about our health, Gio's health, the people that came into our environment's health. So quarantine feels a lot like postpartum. And so when I take my mommy and me classes, which now are via Zoom, and I meet with my community of moms, we talk a lot about how this really feels like it could be either a trigger for a lot of new moms. And so I ironically stumbled upon my highlight on Instagram that was all about my postpartum journey, and I wanted to highlight those moments for you because I think that there are a lot of moments throughout a new mom's journey postpartum that get overlooked, and I think a lot of people try to create a glossy version of what being a new mom looks like, and for me it felt very real, it felt very raw, days felt very long, they felt very scary, and I felt very alone. So I'm now at this point where Gio is just about 7 months old, and I feel like a new person, and I have since I'd say about 3-4 months of his age. Like when he turned about 4 months old is when I really started to understand new motherhood, and that I was getting the hang of things, and he was sleeping through the night. And long story short, I want to take a look down memory lane at my postpartum journey. There are probably a handful of things that really stand out in my mind as some of the biggest hurdles and some of the biggest triumphs that I experienced throughout the first now almost 7+ months of being postpartum. I'd say number one is the body transformation, because physically that's what people notice the most. You go from being very pregnant to being not pregnant, but looking all sorts of in between. There's not much I really can do right now, but yeah, I don't know. It's not that bad. I don't know, you guys. I will say I was actually very accepting of, and I say that because I was someone who cared a lot about, my body and my physical well-being. I worked out up until the day Gio was born. I liked being strong, I liked being fit, I liked looking a certain way in my clothes. And so that period of time after giving birth is it's like shocking because you're so in between, but it doesn't really matter all that much.
I don't know if I'll ever not want to wear diapers after this. How sexy am I? Oh, found a pair that, nope, just kidding. Don't zip up. Wow, you guys. It's so interesting because it's like you feel like you could fit into some of your clothes, but you really cannot.
You're so tired. I had a C-section, so I was in so much pain trying to heal from that. I was swollen from the top of my head to my toes, my feet, my legs, everything was swollen. I didn't experience any swelling throughout my pregnancy, so it was all very new for me to feel swelling. And then I would look in the mirror and I would be blown away that I didn't have this huge bump, but I was also somewhat frustrated with like trying to dress a new body that wasn't like the size that I was prior to being pregnant. So I was still wearing all my pregnancy or maternity, you know, clothes, oversized clothes. And it was actually a really beautiful process because I remember being 1 week out from having Geo. Maybe it was a little less than a week, maybe 5 or 6 days, and just feeling like I looked so thin. And when I look back through my highlights, I was like, I looked pregnant there. How did I feel so thin? But I really did. I felt like I was like nothing. I'm like, I could totally fit into all my clothes. And then lo and behold, nothing fit me. So it's like this weird, I don't know if it's hormones or what, that like protects you from like feeling, you know, out of shape and inadequate. But like in reality, I really just felt beautiful. And I was blown away by how I was once very pregnant to not being pregnant at all, to now having a human that I'm taking care of, which brings me to my next point.
Wow. Nothing's more real than this moment. And at any moment, I feel like I can almost cry just talking about all the things that are going on. They say, you know when you're ready. I don't think you ever know what you're gonna be in for, okay? Look how real this is. Oh no, the mouth is going. No. He eats, my voice. When he hears my voice and he's in my arms, it's just, all he cares about is my boob, not me.
Taking care of a new human that you don't really know, that is like a postpartum just mind explosion, because I went through pregnancy thinking I knew Geo. Thinking I totally understood him, that we were so in sync, we were so connected, he's my baby, to then him coming out and having needs and having nuances and little like mannerisms that I was still trying to figure out, which brings me to my next postpartum hurdle, breastfeeding. It was by far, number one, the most important thing for me to be good at. And I think I put a little bit of pressure on myself, but I also just assumed that it would be natural and that you wouldn't have an issue. It would be something that just happens and you wouldn't really have to understand how. It just is, you baby latches and you feed them, and that's just what it is. And I had quite a few struggles with breastfeeding. I didn't have a lack of supply because I was constantly putting him on me to feed. I had more of a issue with abundance and figuring out how to like mandate the clogs and the different, it was a little bit of a handful.
You guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm having a rough go today. I feel extra tired. I'm having a hard time breastfeeding. I'm trying to pump because it's so painful to have him latch. And he just bit me with his no teeth. I don't understand how I just got bit. Breastfeeding update. I have been feeding Geo all day, almost every hour and a half. And I came in here, I fed him for a while, for at least maybe 40 minutes, but it was mostly on my left side. And so I walked out to the living room, and for some reason I just went like this on my right side, and it was a mass like you've never felt, so hard as a rock, multiple rocks, like all the way down the side of my boob, like in my lymph nodes. And I literally freaked out, and Andrew was like, oh my God, he felt them. And so, poor guy, he's so amazing. He came in here, and while I pumped, he rubbed every single knot out of my lymph node. And I got such a flow. That's why one side is like loaded with milk right now. Lesson learned, if you're gonna feed your baby, it's so much better to be mindful of like each side, because this one obviously needed to be pumped, or he needed to feed off of it, because that ball of just milk was clogged in there, and it's so painful. I'm just still trying to figure all this out. But if anyone out there is, struggling, or, newly a mom or becoming a mom, I just thought I would share my experience.
It's been by far the most beautiful part of my postpartum journey, because it was the hardest thing I went through in the very beginning. I'd say up until Gio was probably about 2 months old is when things really started to figure themselves out. And now he's just an eating machine. I still nurse him regularly. We're not really on a feeding schedule. Things are just so much more fluid. And that's all really due to quarantine, because when quarantine happened, I think on week 2 of quarantine, I realized I need to be more flexible, because there's a lot of things right now that are completely out of my control, and I'm not gonna let my kid be one of them. And so I learned to just go with the flow a little bit more. And that's something I wish I would have told myself in the very beginning of being a new mom, is even though things feel lonely, even though things feel scary, even though your biggest job in the world is to keep this kid alive and fed and happy and healthy, you have to learn how to just go with the flow and not let those stresses affect you, because that will affect your swelling, that will affect how you heal, that will affect how your breast milk comes in or doesn't come in. So I just want to give any kind of advice or any kind of light to new moms, new parents, because dads feel it too, that there is so much light at the end of the tunnel, much like there is at the end of this quarantine. We're all learning new habits, we're all adapting to a new lifestyle. And I just wanted to make those correlations between quarantine and being a new parent, because it feels like we're reliving it all again, but I'm having a chance to redo it in the way that I wish I would have done it in the first place, which was to just take a deep breath and trust my instincts and trust that we're doing the right thing. We're all staying safe. We're all taking care of our little ones, our families, our indirectly, even if we're not quarantined with our families, we're taking care of our families.
Give me a kiss.
Okay, you guys, so there is a little bit about my quarantine journey thus far, and also relating it back to, being a new parent. I think they're very similar, oddly enough, and I hope you guys found any of these tips helpful. I want to make more of these videos. I want to hopefully enlighten things and help you in the places that I feel like I've learned from my own lessons, and I hope you guys are staying safe. So if you like this video, please let me know. Share below what you want to see next, but more importantly, just like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can be in the know, and that's it. Love you guys. I don't know what this is. I don't know why I'm doing this. God help me.